Once again, it's on. You know what time it is. It's time to play some toss. Welcome, everyone, to episode 104 of the Tristain on Sports Show Toss. It is your main man, T-Square, Tristain Thomas, hanging with you. Thank you so very much for joining us. Happy Black History Month begins today as we record this program. Coming up on Toss, the Bucks. We're almost 3/4 of the way into the season. We have got to get into what they are. How have they been doing this season? What have I seen from them? Have we figured them out? We'll discuss. A couple of Packers notes, some changes made there. Quick stop in with the Brewers, and then we got to get to the tall sweep. Big NFL news from a big retirement. You guys probably already know where I'm going with that. And a huge lawsuit. But you know how we get things started here on Toss. We get things started with the state of the state, and let's get right into it. Now, you all know my rule. You know my rule. My rule is you cannot accurately tell what an NBA team is, or even begin to have an inkling of what an NBA team is, until at least 30 games into a season. Now, last season, it was shortened by 10 games. It was a 72-game season instead of the normal 82. This season, back to the full 82-game schedule. So now, last year, I talked about the Bucks. After 25 games, I did a deep dive on them. This year, I intended to wait 30 games, but there were some issues. And we'll get into that in a little bit, but there were some issues, and then there were some bigger news stories that came up, and we had to talk about them. But now we're going to spend our time talking about the Bucks here on Toss and the Toss State of the State. Coming into tonight, they were 31-21. That was good enough for fifth in the East. People hear that, and you hear they're fifth. Oh, no, they're close to the play-in. Pump your brakes. They're only a game and a half out of first place. Now, that was coming into action tonight as we record this program on a Tuesday. They did, in fact, defeat the Washington Wizards after another putrid third quarter, which, again, we will talk about in a little bit, to go to 32-21. We still have to wait till other games are finished and completed. Right now, the Nets are playing the Suns. So we'll have to wait and see what happens in that game to see exactly where they end up at the end of the night after tonight's action as far as the standings in the Eastern Conference. But you want to be in that upper half. Obviously, if you're fifth, you're getting real close to that play-in line at 7, and that's where you don't want to be. And then, again, the Nets are currently 6th. If the Bucks were to go up to 4th or even 3rd, and have the Nets kind of follow them, I mean, there's potential for a first-round Bucks-Nets series, which if New York doesn't change their rules, Kyrie's only going to be able to play on the road still, and that's going to be a very, very perplexing series. So, but that's neither here nor there right now. We're still in January. We have a long way to go before you hit playoffs. As I said before, they won their game. They're 32-21. They came into tonight's action at 31-21, good enough for fifth in the East, only a game and a half out of first place. So you kind of like where they are. I believe last season you really saw it. This team does not care about the number 1 seed. They don't care about being number 1, because where did that get them? It got them nothing. It got them bounced in the Eastern Conference Finals the first year under Mike Budenholzer. It got them bounced in the semifinals under the second year of Mike Budenholzer. They went into the playoffs as the 3 seed last season and won the whole damn thing. That's why they're their current reigning, defending NBA world champions. I will never get tired of saying that. But there's parallels between last season and this season. Last season, you heard a lot of complaints from a lot of people. Not us here at Toss, not me. You did not hear me complaining about this. But you hear a lot of Bucks fans and a lot of pundits complaining about the Bucks kind of, you couldn't really call it inconsistent play. You could at times, but kind of their helter-skelter play. And that was for very good reason. When you really look at the substance and the context, Mike Budenholzer was trying different things with this team because over the past 2 seasons in the playoffs, you dealt with a lot of heartache. To lose in that fashion as you did in their first year under Mike Budenholzer in the Eastern Conference Finals, after going up 2-0 in that series and losing 4 straight to the eventual champions, the Toronto Raptors, that's the ultimate heartache. You come into the following season, obviously you're on a roll, and then you kind of hit a rough patch, and then it stops. The NBA stops. COVID hit. Now you go into a bubble environment, and that skid never really stopped. It never really played consistently. Yes, you won your first round playoff matchup against the Orlando Magic, but you absolutely got worked in that semifinal against the Miami Heat, who eventually won the Eastern Conference Championship, went on to the NBA Finals, lost to the Lakers. So you learned a lot through that heartache, but you still had a lot more to learn in order to overcome said heartache and ensure that it did not happen again, that you were able to overcome that sort of adversity come playoff time. Different defensive lineups, different offensive sets. Mike Budenholzer was really playing around with that in the regular season, so the Bucks would get proficient at it, be able to have correct adjustments, and overcome that adversity come playoff time. And it worked. Again, they're the defending NBA world champions. All because of what he decided to do with his lineups, both offensively and defensively. His sets, both offensive and defensively, in the regular season. Now, there was a point in time in the playoffs where you just wanted to smash your head against a brick wall because the adjustments were so blatantly there. And it cost him a couple of games in postseason. And that led Charles Barkley to say that the Bucks have to be the dumbest team because if they just would go inside where teams could not stop them, they would win handily. Mike Budenholzer started making better adjustments. Bucks started making better plays. And again, they won the championship. This season, dealt with a lot of adversity. You had injuries. You had fatigue. A lot of guys playing a lot of heavy minutes and going into the deepest playoff runs of their careers. You got Drew and Chris, who won the NBA Finals and enjoyed the championship parade and then immediately hopped an airplane to go to the Olympics and help Team USA win gold there. Those guys got off to really slow starts, and now they're starting to cook again. I think that fatigue is kind of worn off because they never really stopped. They kept playing, and they've been playing. And then not to mention that COVID has reared its ugly head multiple times. Giannis has battled it. Chris has battled it. Drew has battled it. The Nazis has battled it. Mike Budenholzer has battled it. You had a lot of challenges with the roster and coaching. But none of that, and I'll get to the reason why I mentioned that in a minute, none of that has anything to do with your biggest bugaboo this season, which has been the third quarter. The third quarter has just been the biggest bugaboo for the Milwaukee Bucks this year. I'm not lying when I say it is the absolute most putrid basketball you can watch this season. Isn't between a team that's not winning a whole lot of games. I don't want to pick on Orlando, but they're not winning a whole lot of games. That's not the most putrid basketball you can watch. The most putrid basketball you can watch right now is the Bucks in the third quarter. It's some of the most perplexing, some of the most frustrating, some of the worst basketball I've seen out of this group under Mike Budenholzer. And I just don't have a reason for why it happens. And it's not happening just, a game here and a game here. It's happening every single game. You're just waiting on it. If the Bucks have a big lead at the half, guarantee they're losing that lead in the third quarter. For some inexplicable reason. I don't know what they're doing at halftime, but they should have stopped a long time ago. Whatever you're doing at halftime, do something different. Because you cannot afford to have a quarter like that come playoff time. Again, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We're looking forward. We don't want to assume that the Bucks would just make the playoffs because I've been around this game for a long time. I've been around the Bucks for a long time. And there was a point in time when the Milwaukee Bucks were head and shoulders above any other team in the NBA, by far ahead in the Eastern Conference, and they lost their way out of the playoffs. They went from first in the Eastern Conference, best record, to not even making the playoffs. So that bit of remembrance, that bit of trauma is in the back of my head. So that's why I don't want to speak ahead of myself. But you would have to think by all intents and purposes that they're going to make the playoffs. But let's say that they do make the playoffs. Let's just speak in that term. If they make the playoffs, you cannot have a quarter like that. That is just not going to get it done. I know I'm not saying anything shocking, but it's shocking how shockingly bad they are in the third quarters this season with no rhyme or reason for it. Do guys go back there and eat a big meal and just don't come out with the right energy, want to take a nap? Are they back there popping a bunch of no-doses and sleeping through the third quarter? I mean, I don't know what the deal is. It's one of the most perplexing things I've seen. For a quarter to be that bad consistently, again, not just here and there, consistently bad third quarters. And they've lost games because of those third quarters. I just don't understand how that is possible. But I said all that to say this. We really don't know what this team truly is. And that goes back to what I was talking about, the injuries and the fatigue and the COVID. It's really jumbled your lineup quite a bit. You've had some guys not available. You've had some guys trying to shake off fatigue. You've had guys trying to battle back from COVID. Your head coach has battled it. We really don't know what this squad truly is other than terrible in the third quarter. But when you look at it as a whole, somehow, some way, this team is still in, I believe, in the top 10 offensively and defensively in the NBA, even with those putrid third quarters. Even with all the jumbled lineups due to injury and other things, you're still missing Brook Lopez, which that is another thing. A lot of people poo-poo Brook being out. And when I heard that he was having back surgery, I'm like, oh, man, that is bad. Not just because he's getting to be an older player and a big man with a back injury. I mean, really anybody with a back injury is concerning. Look at Michael Porter Jr. Anybody with a back injury is a bad thing, but a big man that's getting into the twilight of his career, that's really bad. But he was also the guy that anchored your defense. He was the eraser. He was really the quarterback of that defense. And you're missing him. You don't have that true anchor in the middle to be that eraser when you miss a rotation, when a guy blows by you. Brook was there, cleaning up those mistakes. his importance to this defense and this team is so far underscored, it's not even funny. The Bucks are definitely missing him, and they really have not addressed him. That they brought in Boogie, and Boogie had some good moments, and he was serviceable, but he was not a guy that was a long-term solution. I'm not poo-pooing anything that he did with the Bucks, but he was a stopgap solution. They're still hoping that they get Brook back. I believe he's been on the court doing a little bit. They've had to yell at him not to jump because he's still in the rehab process and healing. But what he brings to the table, not just from being able to knock down open shots from the outside, but the fact that he was that defensive anchor, that eraser when mistakes were made on the perimeter. That's heavily missed right now. Giannis is at his best when he's that roaming defender. You got Brook in the middle, and Giannis is that roaming defender. One of the toughest defenses in the NBA, because then you got Drew on the perimeter. Middleton isn't what he once was defensively, but he still could get after it. Obviously, you're missing PJ Tucker, which that's still a head-scratching thing on how that signing didn't happen. Grayson Allen has stepped in and been serviceable. Pat Connaughton, he's always hard-nosed. Dante DiVincenzo has finally started to shake off some of the rust of missing months and months and months of basketball action after his surgery. I think this team is still finding itself. Again, I don't feel confident saying, okay, this is the type of team that they are. Sometimes they show absolute grit. Sometimes they just fall flat. Just about every damn third quarter they fall flat. But, I mean, overall, in the entire game, sometimes you just fall flat. Sometimes you see those flashes of brilliance and dominance of that you would expect from a defending NBA champion. And other times it's like, man, what are they doing? This team doesn't look like it has the same fire, the same hunger. They're looking pretty content out there. We got our really big rings, and now we're really cool with whether or not we do it again or not. Jury's still out on the squad. We know one thing and one thing only. We know two things. They dealt with a lot of adversity, which has affected their lineups. But that is no excuse for how bad they are in the third quarter. There's still a lot of basketball to be played. You've only played 53 games. You're getting down to the nitty-gritty of the season. I believe that's 29 games remaining? All-Star break coming up in a couple of weeks here. All-Star happens on my birthday, February 20th. So you want to give your boy get at me on Twitter at the20double. I kid. But All-Star game on my birthday, that should be enjoyable. But which Giannis did make the All-Star game as a starter, his sixth. Congratulations to him. Hoping to see Drew there. Maybe Chris. Chris has come on as of late. Didn't have the best game tonight. But again, he and Drew are shaking off that fatigue from the long playoff run, the championship, and then going over and winning a gold medal. But there's still some time for this team to figure it out. Again, 29 games remaining in the regular season. You're still jockeying for playoff position. Again, you're coming in tonight, 1.5 games back of first in the Eastern Conference. It's not like you can't make a move. It's not like you can't figure this out and get better. And get better when it counts. Because I believe momentum is a real thing. You want to go into the playoffs playing well. You want to go in healthy, number one. But you would like to go in playing well, beginning to peak. You don't want to peak too early. And the Bucks have definitely not peaked at all this season. despite all the struggles, despite those putrid third quarters, despite all the lineup shufflings because of all the injuries and the illnesses and the fatigue, they're still only a game and a half back coming into tonight's action for first in the East. So it's not all doom and gloom. It's not all bad. Obviously, they have things they need to improve upon. But you got to like where they could potentially go. But they got to figure out that third quarter. Figure out that third quarter. This team would be on the right track. It's time for us to run the tall sweep. Toss Sweep, brought to you by the good folks at TossNationMedia.com. Toss Nation Media, your home for the tallest brand of sports. Truthful, opinionated, passionate sports. It's what you deserve. Y'all, the NFL, you're seeing different ends of the spectrum from the NFL today. It's a trip. How in the morning it's celebrating one of your all-time greats, and by the afternoon, it's dealing with something that should have been dealt with a long-ass time ago. We'll start off with, obviously, the big retirement news, which was actually broken this past weekend, and everybody's jumping on the reporters that broke that news that Tom Brady was retiring. And then you had his agent come out and said, "Oh, Tom has not made that decision." And then Tom Brady's dad came out and said, "Tom ain't made no decision yet. Y'all tripping. Why y'all lying? He ain't said nothing." And I got a couple of DMs. Again, Twitter at the20double. On Facebook. It's facebook.com/TOnSportsShow. I got a few DMs about, "Oh, man, well, why haven't you said anything?" That's big news. Like, man, why have you said anything? Do you know anything? And I was like, yeah, I know that if I didn't hear from Tom Brady, then I'm not believing it. Tom's been consistent throughout his entire career that he's the guy that controls his messaging. He's the guy that controls his messaging. So I think those reporters, and, obviously Adam Schefter being one from ESPN, Packers fans know him well. I think out of spite, he was like, "Oh, well, I haven't made that decision yet," because he wanted to do it himself and break it in the way that he wanted to break it. And look, and I said this on the Toss Facebook page. I'm not going to dunk on Schefter. His job is to break the news, and he got that big piece of juicy news from one of Brady's loose-lipped members of his circle, and he broke the story. That's his job. And he was right. He may not have made that. I mean, honestly, I think the decision had been made, but Brady wanted to break it himself in the way that he wanted to do it. He didn't want this to get out there and have reporters break the news and take that shine away from him. Came out with a multi-page Instagram post and a carousel, if you will, detailing his retirement. A lot of people took the fact that he didn't mention Robert Kraft or the New England Patriots whatsoever in that post. Take it for what you will. I know there's a lot of Tom Brady fatigue and how the media just gushes over him and this, that, and the third. And He's got 7 championships. He's the first guy with 7 championships. But you know who the guy was with the first guy with 6 rings was? Charles Haley. Or did he have 5? I think he had 6. He had 5 or 6, but he was the first to do that. 5, 6 Super Bowl rings. The man who set the standard was Bart Starr, the 5 NFL championships, including the first 2 Super Bowls. So you talk about somebody with a handful of rings, Bart Starr was the first to do it. But I digress. There was a lot of time fatigue, and I get it. You know, everybody wants to see the winners lose. You know, when you win and you get consistent, you become great and you consistently win, people want to see you lose. It is the same with the Packers. We saw that a couple weekends ago when they lost in the divisional round. You saw that with the Patriots every year. See that with the Yankees. People want, you know, the Lakers. You know, people want to see you lose. When you get so good and you get so dominant, they want to see you lose. So there was a bit of Tom Brady fatigue because he was always there and he was always winning and the media was all over him and this, that, and other. But take away all of that and look at what he did on the field. And there's no denying his greatness on the field. You can love him, you can hate him, but there's no way you could deny the longevity and the production on the field. He is going to go down as one of the greats to do it. I don't know if I want to say he's the greatest of all time. He's going to go down as one of the greats to ever do it. It's been one hell of a ride, one hell of a run. Another but congratulations to Tom Brady on a fantastic career, and that's for lack of a better word there. It was better than fantastic. I think everybody, now that he's retired, you can all be honest with yourselves. The man was terrific. So kudos to him on a great career. Good luck in your next chapter. He's going to have a lot of different avenues that he can take, and I have no doubts that he'll take full advantage of all those. So you go from one end of the spectrum where you're celebrating one of your all-time greats, finally calling it a career, to on the very first day of Black History Month, former Dolphins head coach Brian Flores is suing the NFL over racial disparities and discriminatory practices in their hiring practices. And when I saw the very first page of the suit, and it is a class action suit, so it's not like other, coaching candidates, Black and other people of color, candidates cannot come into this. They can. It is a class action suit. I can't put into words how huge this is. We all know that these practices have been going around. There's a reason why the Rooney Rule was installed, but now you've gotten to a point with that rule where teams are taking advantage of that rule to satisfy it, but not really seriously consider Black and other people of color head coaches. They're trying to just bring me 2 Black head coaches, bring me, 2 minority candidates, and let's just satisfy this. But we already know who we want to hire, but let's just bring these guys in so we can just satisfy the Rooney Rule. We know how discriminatory the NFL is. Look at what they've done to Colin Kaepernick. And and I already know I'm going to get this in the DMs. I already know I'm going to get this in the comments of the show. And quite frankly, I don't give a damn. But we already know what these people out here who are in favor of these discriminatory practices or act like as if they don't exist are going to say, well, yeah, you hired the best guy. You hired the best candidate for the job. Well, yeah, you hired the best candidate for the job. But if that was truly happening, there'd be more than one, well, now 2 black head coaches in the NFL. There'd be more. That's not what's happening. Because I can guarantee you that the best candidate, like you can't have that many candidates. Look at all the black head coaching candidates that are out there. You got Brian Flores is still out there interviewing for jobs. He shouldn't even be interviewing for jobs. He should still be the Dolphins head coach. And we'll get into the suit in a second. He's out there. I believe he just interviewed for the Saints job. Byron Leftwich led a Super Bowl winning offense last season for Tampa Bay. Todd Bowles, former head coach of the Jets. The roster he had wasn't exactly going to lend himself to success. Raheem Morris is still out there. Another situation where the roster did not lend to him having a whole lot of success, but yet somehow, some way, he found a way to have a winning season there. Leslie Frazier, former Vikings head coach. You know the success he had there? I mean, there's candidate after candidate after candidate out there. And you're trying to tell me that there's no qualified black head coaching candidates? I mean, it's crazy. Flores went on to have a lot of allegations in this suit. The one on page 1 of the suit was that he believes, and I believe he has the proof to back that up, that he was railroaded for the Giants head coaching job. Leslie Frazier had an interview for it. They were supposed to bring Flores in for an interview for it. He ends up getting a text from Bill Belichick, of all people. Quote, "Sorry, I fucked this up. I double checked and misread the text. I think they are naming Brian Daboll. I'm sorry about that. BB." Bill Belichick informing plaintiff Brian Flores 3 days before his interview with the New York Giants that Brian Daboll had already been selected to the job. At that point, the Giants had not satisfied the Rooney Rule. And they had already known they were going to hire Daboll the entire time. Now, some people can say, oh, well, you hired the best guy for the job. Oh, well, you know, that's pretty shitty. They really should not have had him come in for an interview in bad faith. That really sucks. No. That more than sucks. And this is what's consistently happening. And it's the reason why the Rooney Rule is in place to actually give people other than white males an opportunity to be a head coach, an opportunity to have longevity in those positions. And it's just now that teams have found a way to work around it. to interview in bad faith. And it's never been brought to the light because the reality of the dichotomy of being black in America in any sort of position, and I've dealt with this my damn self, so I speak from experience. And you may have all heard this in movies and seen it like, man, you take it as just fiction. And it's not fiction. We have to be twice as good to get half of what they get. And by they, I mean white people. And I'm not saying that it's the same case for all white people. I'm not saying the same case for all black folks. But a majority of us have that fight to take on daily. And in the NFL with head coaches, they have to be perfect. They cannot fail. They are not afforded time to fail and improve. Understand something. Mike Tomlin is an anomaly. He's with Pittsburgh, the very place that the Rooney Rule was created. And that franchise has a long history of having patience with their head coaches. He's led them to 2 Super Bowls, winning 1. He's never had a losing season. He's proven himself to be a damn good coach, but he's in a situation that is it's an anomaly where ownership has the patience to keep him on despite the struggles because they have faith in his abilities. And they're going to give him that opportunity. Other black head coaches are not afforded that. Look at David Culley. The Texans knew exactly what they were going to do. They knew the messed up situation with Deshaun Watson. They knew that was not going to get rectified. They knew that they were bringing him in for 1 year despite signing him to a multi-year deal, and they cut him. They fired him after 1 season. That was their whole purpose from the get-go. Brian Flores was a guy that was brought in to be a transitional head coach. They wanted to stockpile picks and get high picks and get guys in there and then switch coaches to have them win. They brought him in to lose because also in the suit, he's alleging that Dolphins owner, Stephen Ross, offered him $100,000 per loss. He wanted him to lose. He brought him in and told him to lose games. But instead, Brian Flores said, to hell with that. I'm brought in to coach these guys up and win ball games, and that's what we're going to do. 5-11 his first season, 10-6 his next season, 9-8 this past season. 24 wins, which is more than the 13 head coaching wins that the coaches have gotten hired in this coaching hiring cycle have altogether. The very fact that this has to even be done is infuriating. But groundbreaking, because he's in a position where I'm not going to take this shit anymore. This really, truly needs to change, and I have to bring this to light. He may very well be sacrificing his head coaching career. Period. They're going to do him just like they did Kaepernick, and then they're going to try to rewrite history. They're trying to put up some revisionist history that he wasn't a good enough coach. He couldn't get these guys to the playoffs, despite having winning seasons in back-to-back years with that sort of a roster. He coached those guys up. He built a foundation and a culture of toughness and accountability. And they try to paint him as hard to work with. Whenever you hear that about somebody that's black in that sort of a situation, you gotta raise an eyebrow. Oh, something's up. That story don't jive with me. It's the same thing they did with Kaepernick. Oh, well, Kaepernick wasn't good enough to play. But they forget a big chunk of that. Oh, he got benched for Blaine Gabbert. You know why he got benched for Blaine Gabbert? Because he wasn't healthy. He had a shoulder injury and a couple of other injuries that caused him to lose a lot of muscle mass. He could not work out the way that he used to. And then when he started getting healthy, guess what? He started playing the way that we all knew he could play. He took over the starting quarterback spot from Blaine Gabbert. 16 touchdowns, 4 interceptions in his final season in the NFL, which should not have been his final season in the NFL. So they'll try to rewrite that history and tell you that he sucked. Yeah, on the field he sucked because he was hurt. Let's just forget about that part of it. He got benched for Blaine Gabbert. Yeah, because he was hurt. Lost a ton of muscle. He healed up, gained that muscle back, and started balling out. Go and look at the game tape of his final season. You tell me that he can't play quarterback in the National Football League. You a damn lie. But that's what they're going to do. They're going to try to create this revisionist history as if it's simply not good enough. And it's a lie. Brian Flores said this on this lawsuit. Quote, God has gifted me with a special talent to coach the game of football, but the need for change is bigger than my personal goals. In making the decision to file the class action complaint today, I understand that I may be risking coaching the game that I love and that has done so much for my family and me. My sincere hope is that by standing up against systemic racism in the NFL, others will join me to ensure that positive change is made for generations to come. That was Brian Flores in the suit. Of course, you know the NFL had their retort. They released a statement saying, quote, the NFL and our clubs are deeply committed to ensuring equitable employment practices and continue to make progress in providing equitable opportunities throughout our organizations. Diversity is core to everything we do. That's a lie. And there are few issues on which our clubs and our internal leadership team spend more time. That's a lie. We will defend against these claims, which are without merit. How can they be without merit just, mere hours after seeing the suit? Flores has receipts. And I said it on Twitter. How many times has the NFL been caught in 4K? They do know we can see them, right? We've seen all this in action. We've seen all of it in action. You tell me that a guy who led the Chiefs offense to a Super Bowl championship a couple seasons ago, and Eric Bieniemy, you tell me how he's not a head coach. You know the revisionist history on that? Oh, he interviews terribly. Who gives a damn how he interviews? What is his football acumen? Can he do the job? Clearly he can. That man should have been a head coach 2 years ago. There are problems, big problems, and there has been problems with the NFL and race. There always has been. But for them to sit here and act as if these allegations are not true, when we all see it, unless you're being ignorant and turning a blind eye to it and try to draw that revisionist history I've been talking about, The NFL is caught in 4K. And Brian Flores has had the courage to stand up to him and say, no more. It's going to be interesting to see how this turns out, and I hope that it is the beginning of true change for this league that has had an issue with this for so very long. They sit there and act like painting in racism in the end zone and putting the decals on the back of helmets is actually doing something. Running your little 15-second spots here and there is actually doing something. This performative coalition that you got together is actually doing something, and it's not. You can't go outside and fix the inequities and inequalities that exist until you fix it within your own organization first. Well, y'all, that'll do it for me. Got me fired up on that one. That was episode 104 of Toss with Tristain Sports Show. Y'all know where to find me on social media at the20double. That's at the number 2, the number 0, and the word double on Instagram and Twitter. Follow me in both spaces. Also follow our Facebook page, facebook.com/TON That's TON Sports Show. Cover a lot of things there that we don't get a chance to on the show. And of course, TossNationMedia.com, your home for the Toss brand of sports. Truthful, opinionated, passionate sports. It's what you deserve. But, as I said before, it's time for me to get on up out of here. This has been T-Squared Tristan Thomas reminding all of you to keep it moving forward. Always forward. Forward always. Until next week, so long from Toss.